The Monster with 21 Faces. On the night of March 18, 1984, Katsuhisa Ezaki, president of Ezaki Glico, one of Japan's biggest candy companies, was taken from his home in Nishinomiya by two masked intruders. The individuals first broke into the home of Ezaki's mother to obtain a key, then stormed into his residence. They restrained his wife and daughter and took Ezaki while he was still wet from his bath to a warehouse in Osaka. Their demand for ransom was 1 billion yen, which is around $4.5 million, and 100 kilograms of gold bars. This was the highest ransom ever demanded in Japan at the time. However, Ezaki managed to escape after just 65 hours. He later told media outlets that he had been held in a warehouse in Ibaraki City, not far from his company's headquarters. The strange part was that he claimed he was able to escape simply because he had been left unmonitored. The story doesn't end there. It was just the beginning, because a month later, on April 10, 1984, the vehicles of the same company were destroyed in their headquarters. And just a week later, a container filled with a highly corrosive chemical was left in one of Glico's buildings as a warning. And if that wasn't bad enough, it came with a note solidifying the fact that these were the same people behind the earlier abduction. Another month passed by, and these things started to escalate exponentially. In May of 1984, both Glico and local Osaka media received letters claiming that candy packs containing traces of cyanide would be placed on store shelves. The name on the letter was The Monster with 21 Faces. In response, Glico pulled $21 million worth of products from shelves across Japan. As a result, the company suffered a major financial blow, with sales for that month dropping by half and hundreds of workers were laid off. However, despite all this, no contaminated candies were ever found. While all this was unfolding, they openly mocked both the Japanese police and media. In one letter, they even referred to the police as fools and dared the police to catch them. They were so confident and arrogant that they even gave clues to the police about the color of the getaway car, which was gray. They also described how they entered the company's factory through the staff gate to plant a container filled with acid, and the container used was a piece of street garbage. But a month later, on June 26, 1984, the group calling itself The Monster with 21 Faces sent a letter to major Japanese newspapers declaring that they were forgiving Glico. However, this letter had a dramatic shift in tone from previous threats and taunts. The letter stated that Glico's president had gone around with his head hanging down long enough and that it was time to let the company off the hook. The message was oddly sentimental. It mentioned that one of the group members had a 4-year-old child who cried daily for Glico candy, and that even the perpetrators hadn't eaten Glico products in a long time, though they used to enjoy them. They wrote, "It's a drag to make a kid cry." They claimed to have destroyed 18 contaminated candies, and just like the previous letters, this one also included mocking elements. They joked about taking a vacation to Europe, Zurich, London, or Paris once their work was done, and even teased the police by saying not even Sherlock Holmes could catch them. However, the group had started targeting other companies by now, because just 4 days ago on June 22nd, the group sent a letter to the president of Marudai Food Company, Takashi Haga, instructing him to carry out a highly choreographed ransom drop. This time, the demand was 50 million yen, which was roughly around $200,000 at the time. On June 28th, he was told to take the 819 Kyoto-bound train that stops at every station, sit in a designated seat, and upon seeing a white flag near the tracks, throw a bag out the window. The letter even included a train ticket and a cassette tape containing a voice recording of Glico's president taped during his earlier abduction. Police set up surveillance around the station and along the route. The drop itself failed, no money was exchanged, and no suspects were caught. But during the operation, they spotted a suspicious man appeared to be monitoring the scene but vanished before they could apprehend him. Police launched an intensive effort to identify him. They created a sketch based on eyewitnesses, describing him as a man with sharp, narrow eyes and thin eyebrows that earned him the nickname Fox-Eyed Man. The sketch was widely circulated, and the media dubbed him the most promising lead in the case. But now the group shifted their target to Morinaga and Company, another giant Japanese candy company. They sent a letter on October 8th addressed to all mothers in Japan, claiming this time they had contaminated Morinaga candies with traces of cyanide and placed them on store shelves. We added some special flavor to it. The flavor of potassium cyanide is a little bitter. We placed 20 pieces between Hakata and Tokyo. After 10 days, we will place 30 more without any sign across Japan. In response, the Japanese government sent around 40,000 police officers to supermarkets. This again triggered widespread panic and forced Morinaga to recall thousands of products. Even though the actual number of contaminated items were quite small, the threat against Morinaga escalated public anxiety. Consumers stopped buying not just Morinaga products, but many packaged foods altogether. The Japanese food industry suffered massive financial losses, and supermarkets pulled entire product lines from shelves. However, this time, they had a potential breakthrough in the case. On October 7th, a day before the letter arrived, surveillance footage captured a man placing what were believed to be the contaminated Morinaga candies on store shelves. Though the image quality is poor, the man appears to be wearing a business suit, glasses, and a baseball cap. To this day, this remains the only known footage linked to the case, but this individual has never been identified. Now remember the fox-eyed man from earlier. Police got a second chance at him. On November 14th, 1984, the group launched a new extortion attempt, this time targeting the House Food Corporation, demanding 100 million yen, about $400,000 in a secret drop. The plan was that a cash delivery van was instructed to drive along the Melshin Expressway and deposit the money inside a can beneath a white cloth at a designated location. Police, determined not to repeat past failures, deployed surveillance teams along the route. The cash delivery van the police were tailing continued toward the drop point, where the ransom was to be placed inside a can under a white cloth. When the van arrived, the white cloth was there, but the can was missing. The police determined the drop to be a test by the monster group, and after realizing this, the investigation team was ordered to withdraw. But an hour earlier, something else had happened. A patrol car from Shiga Police had noticed a station wagon parked with its engine running and headlights off less than 50 meters from a white cloth hanging from a fence. Unaware of the secret ransom operation, the officer approached the vehicle and flashed his torch on the driver. The man was thin-faced, in his 40s, wearing a golf cap pulled low over his eyes, and notably had a wireless receiver with headphones. Startled by the officer, the man sped off, and the station wagon eventually escaped. The fox-eyed man once again managed to escape. Later, the vehicle was found abandoned near Kusatsu Station and was discovered to have been stolen. Inside, investigators found a radio transceiver that had been used to monitor police radio communications connected to the ransom drop. The criminal group later mocked the sketch in a letter, saying, "If that sketch is supposed to be one of us, y'all better draw him looking a whole lot better." Then, a couple months later, on February 13th, 1985, just one day before Valentine's Day, the group sent a letter to the newspaper threatening to scatter cyanide-laced chocolates all across Japan. The timing was so strategic that in Japan, Valentine's Day is a major retail event, with women buying chocolates for friends, bosses, and colleagues. Retailers expected over $150 million in candy sales during the first half of February. That same day, 6 packages marked with the warning, "You'll die if you eat this," were discovered in Tokyo and Nagoya. Police confirmed that at least 3 contained potassium cyanide, and the packages were signed by the group. Some were found in public places like a subway bathroom, a post office, and a restaurant. The threat forced emergency recalls, disrupted sales, and deepened the crisis of Morinaga, which was losing $120,000 per day and had laid off nearly 500 workers. By August of '85, the pressure was at a boiling point. The lead investigator, Shoji Yamamoto, had spent over a year chasing ghosts, yet failing to identify or catch the monster with 21 faces, and the weight of the entire country's expectations was purely on his shoulders. On August 7th, that pressure finally took its toll in a tragic way, and Yamamoto was gone. And then, just 5 days later, the group sent their final letter to the media. They wrote, "We decided to forget about torturing food-making companies. We are bad guys. That means we've got more to do other than bullying companies." The letter also included taunts about law enforcement's failure. It also included that any future threats would be copycats and not from them. And their final words in the letter were, "It's fun to lead a bad man's life." That was the last letter the group ever sent. However, the case remained open for years, and the Fox-Eyed Man was a central figure in police briefings and media coverage. But as time passed, leads dried up, and in the year 2000, the case was officially closed, and the mystery still remains unsolved as who was the monster with 21 faces. Fukushima septic tank. On February 24, 1989, in Miyakoji village, Yumi Tanaka, a 23-year-old teacher, went to visit her family in another town during a public holiday in Japan. The teacher left her dormitory on the 24th and came back on the 28th to continue teaching at the local school. In the evening, she returned to her dormitory, which stood near the school playground. The dorms were small buildings, each with one room and one bathroom. At that time in rural Japan, squat toilets were very common. This dorm's toilet was connected to a U-shaped septic tank under the floor. One end was linked to the toilet pan, and the other led outside to a sewage pipe. The tank was emptied manually from time to time. At around 6 p.m., the teacher went into the bathroom, but before using the toilet, she looked inside and saw something strange. To her, it looked like a shoe, but when she leaned closer, she thought she saw a human head. Therefore, she quickly ran outside to check the other end of the septic tank. However, the lid of the tank was already unlocked, and when she opened it, she saw a pair of legs. She rushed to call other teachers, and they quickly called the police immediately. A local police officer and a member of the fire department arrived first, followed by officers from the Tamura police station. Their early attempts to remove the body failed because the tank was too narrow, and only after destroying the septic tank, they were able to extract the body. The body was a man in his 20s, lying on his back with his head towards the toilet pan. He wasn't wearing any shirt and was clutching a folded jacket against his chest. His knees were tucked upward to fit inside the tank, while one shoe was stuck near his face. The body was washed twice, first at the scene with a hose and later at the fire station before being handed over for autopsy. The examination revealed only minor scratches on the knees and elbows, with no evidence of a struggle. Meanwhile, police worked to uncover the man's identity and eventually confirmed he was 26-year-old Naoyuki Kano, a respected local resident. He was well known in the community for his involvement in youth associations, serving as a host at weddings, and assisting the village mayor during election campaigns. In recent years, Naoyuki had been employed at the local nuclear power plant as a maintenance worker. He was considered by many to have a bright future ahead of him. A couple of days ago, on February 23rd, Naoyuki attended a farewell party but had left early. The next morning, his father saw him at home around 10 a.m. before Naoyuki left in his car, saying he had errands to run. However, he had never returned after that, and 4 days later, his body was discovered in the septic tank, which was just a 10-minute drive from his home. Despite many unanswered questions, investigators eventually reached a conclusion. They determined that the man had entered the septic tank voluntarily and passed from the combination of hypothermia, which happens due to extreme cold, and thoracic circulatory failure, which happens when your heart can't pump blood as well as it should. Estimating his passing occurred on February 26, 2 days before his body was discovered. Police believed he had crawled inside to spy on women using the toilet, and they ruled out the involvement of any third party. A large portion of Miyakoji's residents remained unconvinced that Naoyuki had climbed into the septic tank on his own. Within a month, more than 4,000 villagers, which is over half of the village's population, signed a petition urging the police department to reopen the investigation. Sadly, their request was denied. While the idea that Naoyuki entered the tank himself might seem believable at first, but the circumstances surrounding his passing continue to raise serious doubts. Therefore, countless theories have emerged over the years. For one, the weather at the time was around 41 degrees Fahrenheit, which was 5 degrees Celsius, and about 8 inches of snow had fallen. It seems unlikely that anyone would willingly climb into a septic tank barefoot and without a shirt in such freezing conditions. There were also strange details about his car and shoes. One shoe was found next to his head inside the tank, while the other was discovered 300 meters away near a riverbed. His car was found near the dormitory, left unlocked and with the key still in the ignition, as if he had only planned a quick stop. But the biggest question is how Naoyuki could have fit into the tank at all. The outside opening was about 36 centimeters wide, and Naoyuki was 170 centimeters tall, with shoulders about 40 centimeters wide. Even a smaller person would struggle to squeeze through such a narrow space. 5 years later, Naoyuki's father appeared on Fuji TV program, still fighting to prove something darker had happened. He showed photos from the case and even rebuilt the same septic tank. On the show, a man with a similar build to Naoyuki tried to climb into the outside opening, but quickly got stuck and had to be pulled out, supporting the father's claim that entering the tank by himself was nearly impossible. The police's theory wasn't completely baseless either, because there have been other cases in Japan where men climbed into drains to spy on women. The autopsy added more confusion. It was estimated that Naoyuki passed away on February 26th, but cold temperatures can affect this process, making the estimate uncertain. But even if the autopsy was correct, what happened to Naoyuki between the 24th and the 26th? It was also revealed later that Naoyuki knew the teacher and likely knew she would be away from her dorm until the 28th. If he had wanted to spy, this would have been the worst timing. Villagers also grew suspicious of the local police chief because of how poorly the case was handled, especially after refusing to reopen it. Fuji TV reporters later interviewed officers, but their statements were the same as the final police report. However, when the body was found, many officers and villagers were present at the time, and there was no crime scene tape. No photos were taken, making it impossible to check for evidence like footprints or fingerprints. To make matters worse, the body was washed with a hose at the scene and again at the fire station before the autopsy. Any signs of a struggle, like dirt under Naoyuki's nails, could have been destroyed. While no solid proof has ever overturned the police's theory, these strange details and unanswered questions continue to cast doubt on the official conclusion. The other possible theory suggests that about 10 days before Naoyuki's death, the village held an election for mayor. The 1989 election was tense because people were divided over whether to support nuclear power from the Fukushima Daiichi plant, which was only 26 kilometers away from the village. Some villagers supported nuclear energy because it could bring jobs. Naoyuki also promoted this idea, while others were worried about the risks it would cause to the environment. But Naoyuki's support for the pro-nuclear mayor suddenly stopped, and on the last day he was seen alive, Naoyuki had told a friend, "I have to meet someone tomorrow." He didn't explain further, but the timing seemed suspicious. Some believe that maybe he got entangled in some shady politics and was perceived as a threat, so they decided to get rid of him. However, no solid proof has ever been connected between Naoyuki's passing and the election or the power plant. Even though the case was officially closed, the mysteries of this case still remain unanswered. How could a man with Naoyuki's build possibly fit into such a narrow pipe? Who was the man he was supposed to meet? And if he truly intended to spy, why would he enter the tank 2 days earlier without clothes in freezing weather? All of these details make it difficult to accept the police's conclusion. SOS sign. On July 24, 1989, when two hikers went missing on Mount Asahi in Hokkaido, Japan, authorities quickly launched a search operation. A helicopter scoured the area for the hikers who had set out the day before and had not been spotted since. The hunt stretched on for hours, with search teams checking every corner of the mountain, yet no sign of the missing men appeared. As nightfall appeared, something strange came into view. Just south of Mount Asahi Daki, a massive SOS sign stood in a clearing. Rescuers believed the hikers had built it. It was simple and easy to spot. The rescue team swarmed the area, and finally, about a mile north, the two men emerged from a cave. They were disoriented and exhausted. They were lifted into the aircraft. Rescuers praised their cleverness, saying the SOS sign had saved them, but the hikers got confused. They said they had never built any sign and had no idea what the rescuers were talking about. The authorities were shocked after hearing this, because if these two hikers had not built the sign, then who had? Possibly someone else who might still be out there trying to call for help. The next day, police launched a full-scale search to uncover the mystery of the SOS sign. Only a few hours into their search, they uncovered the scattered remains lying hidden near the SOS sign. They also found a backpack nearby, which contained everyday items like a Sony Walkman, 4 cassette tapes, toothpaste, a bar of soap, and a towel. At first glance, it was clear that the belongings and the bones were connected. For the rescue team, nothing more was found that day. To them, it seemed like a tragic but a straightforward case. Locals explained that the mountain's weather was unpredictable, with sudden thunderstorms. Perhaps the person had gotten lost, wandered off the trail, and spent their final days waiting for help that never came. The conclusion was simple. Someone had died here after building the SOS sign. The only real questions were now. Who was this person, and how can anyone build such a giant SOS sign in such a remote place all by himself? And just 2 days later, examiners from Asahikawa Medical University revealed that the discovered bones actually belonged to a woman instead. She was about 5'3" tall, somewhere between 20 and 40 years old, and had passed away a couple years earlier. Beyond this, no further information could identify her. That is when something about the case started to feel off. Calculations showed that each log used in the SOS sign was about 16 feet long and weighed between 150 to 400 pounds. There were 19 logs in total. The sign weighed somewhere between 3,000 to 7,000 pounds. This meant that the woman would have had to cut down the trees with tools that were never found, by the way, then carry and arrange all the 19 logs entirely on her own. Constructing the sign alone was an extraordinary thing that didn't add up, and yet someone strong enough to build an SOS sign out of 19 massive logs just ended up passing alone in the wilderness? The evidence suggested she could not have done it by herself, but the question still remained as to who this person actually was. The evidence that pushed this case further was a tape the police had found. Investigators examined the cassette tapes from the backpack. While most contained music from anime, TV shows, the last tape was different. It held a voice recording of a man, clearly screaming. The original recording is in Japanese, which translates to,
SOS, help me. I can't move on the cliff. SOS, help me. The place is where I first met the helicopter. The grass is deep, and I can't get up. Lift me up from here.
Despite the bones belonging to a woman, the voice on the recording was shockingly a male, and strangely, in the recording, he never mentioned being with anyone else. If someone is stranded with another person, most likely they would plead help for both. But here, it sounded like he was completely by himself, or maybe he was just unaware that a woman was also stranded in the same area. The only thing tying them together was the SOS sign, which was nearly impossible for one person to build. Meanwhile, when this was all going on, a Japanese reporter named Koyo Aburutani set out to the site of the SOS sign in search of any clues the police may have overlooked. Surprisingly, after digging through some tree roots, just 165 feet north of the SOS sign was a large hole containing 2 cameras, a notebook, notebook, and most prominently, a driver's license. The ID belonged to a man named Kenji Iwamura, someone from Konan City in Japan, which was over 800 miles away from the sign. Police said 5 years ago, Kenji Iwamura, who was 22 years old at the time, went out hiking on Mount Asahedaki on July 10, 1984. His disappearance came to light when he failed to appear for work a week later. His parents asked the police to search for him, but they found no trace. This discovery was massive. This had to be the guy whose voice was on the recording. Determining gender from bone fragments isn't always accurate, but to them, the remains had to belong to him. From there, they contacted Kenji's family, believing this was the final piece of verification needed to close the investigation. Their confidence grew when his parents confirmed he was an avid fan of anime and identified the backpack found at the site belonged to Kenji. Now, finally, the police played the cassette tape found earlier to the parent so they can recognize their son's voice. But they didn't seem to recognize it at all. They had no idea who the voice belonged to. This left the police department stunned and confused because now the tape has allegedly revealed the presence of another unknown individual at the sign. Someone, along with the woman and Kenji Iwamura, was calling out for help. Yet there was no evidence that any of them had ever met each other. This left investigators speechless. However, despite these inconsistencies, the Hokkaido police continued to insist that the SOS sign had been built by Kenji Iwamura. They dismissed the doubts about the bones, ignored the mismatch with the voice, and pressed forward with their theory. And in just 11 days, they closed the case. And a couple months later, on 28th of February 1990, the Asahikawa East Police Station announced that after a full re-examination of all the bones, they now believe the skeleton was male, not female. Yet despite these findings, the mystery still remains because the SOS sign was far too large and heavy for a single person to ever construct. Also, the fact that there were no tools ever found at the site, and birch wood is a hard wood to cut down. So was it the work of one individual, or were there more people present? The case was never reopened again and remains one of Japan's unsolved mysteries.